So we've performed through step 4. We've captured the result that we expected, the results that we expected, and now we will do more with the results. So at this point, we will create an Excel sheet, and then we will put all of our data, input and output data, into the Excel sheet. So let's create the Excel sheet first. So I'll just create an Excel, a Microsoft Excel. And I'll give it a name. Let's name it as my data. And I'll just save it in my documents. Save it there. Let's also save it as Excel 97 to 2003 document, because sometimes QTP gets confused with 2007, 2010, and 13 Excel sheets. So we just keep it as 97 to 2003 documents, just to make it simpler, keep it simple. And again, we'll save it as my data sheet. We'll call it my data sheet. My data sheet, and we save it. Okay. Now we will store the results and also the input data. And so this is sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3. We can name or rename each one of these. So let's name this first one as mortgage calculator. Save it. Click on Save. And now let's take the input data first. So we have our input data, which is the loan amount of, so we'll create a column in here for loan amount. Then we'll create another column for the loan term. And then we have one for interest rate. Interest rate right here. And the result that we are capturing, we'll also put the result or the expected result into the Excel sheet. So monthly payment. Okay. So let's expand these so that we can read the titles clearly. Okay. So we have the loan amount, loan term, interest rate, and monthly payment. Well, let's just make them a little bit more colorful and clear. Make it looks so that it looks good to the eyes. Okay. We can also make the fonts bigger if you want. A little too big. Okay. So we have the loan amount, loan term, interest rate, and the monthly payment. So we save it. And we'll put this data, our input data, into these fields. So the loan amount that we wanted to put was 100,000. 100,000 in here. Loan term was 10 years. Interest rate was 4. Monthly payment we can leave blank for now. We're just dealing with the input data for now. So now let's put this data into a variable, all these data. That's something that we did not do before. So in the beginning of the script, we will initiate variables, loan amount. So we'll create a new variable named loan amount, and we'll put the data equals 100,000. Then another one for loan term, put 10 years. And we'll put interest rate, we'll put 4. Then we'll replace these values with the variables. So for the concept of variables, be sure to rewatch the variables video before you implement or try to understand this video. So the variables are nothing but storing your value into another area of the code and into another text property. So we'll replace all these values with our variables, just like you store your numbers into a phone book and you have a name connected to the phone number. So let's reuse these variables in our code. So instead of 100,000, we'll put loan amount. Instead of interest rate, we'll put loan term. And instead of here, we'll put interest rate. Okay? So before we do anything with the Excel sheet, let's keep the Excel sheet as it is. And we have our variables. Let's close the browser and try to run this one more time just to check the variables. So when we call this loan amount, it should still put the value from here. Okay? So let's run this. Navigates 100,000, 10 years, 4%, puts the values, and it did click on calculate, and it did generate a print log with the monthly payment. So implementation of the variables was fine. Now we have the same data in here, right? So what we will do now is replace these values, the values of these variables, by the values in our Excel sheet. So we will make QTP read the values from our Excel sheet and put it in here. Okay? So to do that, we have to first import the Excel sheet. So import sheet. This is just a comment. This is for my documentation for import sheet so that I know what is happening in this line. So I'll put a single quote, and then here I'll write the code. So we have to import a sheet, this Excel sheet, into our QTP export view. So the code for that is data table dot import sheet dot import sheet, and then we have to provide the path for the sheet. So let's close this Excel sheet. Be sure to save it, and let's get the path for the Excel sheet, which is this, the my data sheet. Let's go to properties, and here, take this location here, copy this location in quotation, and the name of the file is my data sheet, and you'll have to put the extension. So the extension is .xls, which is an Excel sheet. So we put the path, comma, then we have to specify which, if we open the Excel sheet, then we have to specify which sheet within the Excel sheet. So we have first sheet is sheet number 1, then sheet 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. So on and so on. So we have to specify which sheet we want to read. So in this case, we want to read sheet number 1. So we will say, comma, sheet number 1, comma, then we will import this Excel sheet into our QTP data table. So we will import this data from the Excel sheet into our QTP data table. So let's import that into our global data table. So then we'll say global, okay? So let's put a breakpoint in here. So we have a breakpoint in here on line number 4, and let's just execute line number 3 and make sure it works, okay? So we'll see if it's happening. So I'll right click on line number 3 and I'll click on run from step. Okay. Okay. Yep. At this point it executed line number 3 and it stopped. It paused on line number 5 because we have a breakpoint. So unless I click on run, it will stay paused at this point. Now we can see that line number 3 got executed, right? Line number 3 got executed. It imported that Excel sheet into our QTP global data table, and we can actually see that happening down here. We can see that QTP global data table now has loan amount, loan term, interest rate, monthly payment, and all of these values. And remember, these are only runtime values. If we stop the run, we'll see that it all disappears. It all vanishes. Because importing data from an Excel sheet from an external source into the QTP data table and data sheets is only temporary. It's only during runtime. So you can see that those values went away when we were no longer running. So this is the code for importing the Excel sheet into our global data table. In the next video, we'll continue on with this process.